The Five Elders are currently the biggest terms and conditions trap in the history of fiction. On paper, IMU's covenant is the ultimate deal. You give up your humanity, and in return, you get god-tier power and the ability to shrug off hits that would turn a normal man into a fine red mist. But if this power is so perfect, why don't their scars ever heal? It suggests that IMU didn't actually empower them, they preserved them. So today, I want to explore the possibility that IMU's contracts don't just control these fossils, they freeze their souls in place, strip away their independent Haki, and turn them into Wi-Fi enabled vessels for an Eldritch deity. We're talking about a system that offers immortality, but surgically removes the one thing that actually makes you alive. To really wrap your head around the idea of frozen souls isn't just me huffing hopium. You have to stop thinking of IMU as some abstract ethereal god of evil and start thinking of them as a middle manager from hell. IMU is essentially an administrator. They don't just rule the world through raw, sweaty force alone, they manage a system. It's a mechanical framework built on contracts, hierarchy, and literal ownership. A system the story refers to as the Covenant. And the most important thing to grasp here is that the Covenant doesn't seem to operate on the same logic as Devil Fruits or Haki as we know so far. It's a separate layer entirely, one that doesn't give a single damn about your growth, your mastery, or your conqueror spirit. It only cares about compliance and preservation. On the surface, it looks like the ultimate Black Friday deal. You get instant status and the kind of safety a normal person could only dream of. But if you go a little deeper, and it starts to look less like a promotion and more like a leash. I'd argue, at least for the sake of lining up with the story's themes of freedom, it's possible that what's being traded here isn't necessarily your body or even your life. It's maybe something more like your soul's inherent capacity to grow, adapt, and crucially push back, which I argued in this video that Haki might come from the soul. The TLDR is that Haki is literally willpower made manifest, which makes it fundamentally tied to the soul's capacity for intent and ambition. If the soul is the engine of a character's growth, Haki is the output. You can't have the power without the will to drive it, which is exactly why the idea of freezing a soul could effectively patch out a character's ability to generate their own Haki. The lowest system of this level is what's called the Shallows. This tier is actually a massive letdown if you're looking for a power-up. It doesn't grant you immortality, it doesn't really give you a massive strength boost, and it definitely doesn't give you any supernatural perks. What it gives you instead is access. Symbolized by a circle with crossbones, this is the contract with God given to the devoted blades. We don't know the exact ritual for this yet, but we saw Harold get marked just by being in the same room as the Five Elders. The mechanical function here is basically a back door for your soul. You're still fully yourself, you still have your will, and you can grow your Haki, but something new has been installed on top of you. A channel that IMU can monitor and when necessary completely override. It's like agreeing to install a safety app on your phone that actually just lets your boss look through your camera whenever they feel like it. You haven't lost control yet, but you left the door unlocked. This is why the Shallows is so dangerous. They look harmless because nothing about you visibly changes, you don't stagnate yet, you just stop being fully unreachable. Because at the end of the day, the Covenant doesn't need to start by stealing your soul, it just needs to make sure it has the coordinates to find it later. If the Shallows are about opening the door, then the next tier, the Depths, is where the Covenant starts to actually take a pound of flesh. Symbolized by the same circle with crossbones with an extra line that resembles devil horns, this is the level that grants what most people in the One Piece world would call immortality. But if we're being precise, and we should be because this is a massive trap, it's more like functional immortality. Your body can regenerate from lethal damage, you can persist indefinitely, and you're basically immune to permanent destruction. It sounds great, like you just toggled God mode in GTA. But there's a catch that is honestly just tragic. Unlike the final tier we'll get into in a minute, the Depths still allow the body to age. Characters like Figurling Garling weren't frozen in time, they grew older and their bodies changed. And this is where the stasis lens makes everything click into place. Under this framework, the body is allowed to move forward, but the soul is deadlocked. Think of this as a partial saved state. The system isn't locking your physical appearance yet, but it's already taken a snapshot of your body. It's essentially a prototype version of the Abyssal tier's total fixation. At this level, the Covenant uses your soul as a template to keep restoring your life, but it lets the physical shell continue to rot away with time. And here's the real kicker. This is where Haki starts to become a legitimate problem. If your soul is in stasis, you might not lose your Haki instantly, but you stop growing it. Over time, your power would start to feel artificial. It's maintained rather than earned. like a bodybuilder who only keeps their gains through a permanent IV drip of questionable chemicals. At this stage, IMU doesn't even need to be nearby to override you anymore. You aren't quite a puppet yet, but you've become a high-powered system component that's physically incapable of pushing back. So if the depths are about suppressing growth, then the abyssal is about ending it entirely. Under this stage, the abyssal wouldn't just grant immortality, it would enforce fixation. The bearer is frozen at the exact age, condition, and physiological state they were in when the Covenant fully took hold, scars included. That detail matters because it lines up perfectly with how the Five Elders' regeneration behaves. Their bodies don't heal toward an ideal version of themselves, they reset to a stored template. Whatever damage existed at the moment of fixation is carried forward forever. And this is where the loss of Haki becomes unavoidable. A frozen soul, I'd imagine, can't circulate it, deepen it, or wield it independently. What remains isn't personal power, it's output supplied by the system itself. The abyssal doesn't create servants, it creates extensions, bodies preserved in time, animated by a will that no longer belongs to them. Now, if IMU's system was actually as airtight as it looks on paper, the story would basically be over and we'd all just be waiting for Luffy to get turned into a frozen popsicle. But the theory of the soul stasis has one massive glaring problem. Gunko. Gunko is essentially a walking middle finger to the Covenant's usual logic. She breaks the pattern in ways that suggest this stasis isn't just a physical lock, but a psychological one that is currently starting to thaw. The first anomaly is pain. When she struck Brook, she actually reacts with visible shock and actual sensation. Doesn't really make sense for this kind of thing to happen. So why is it happening? We're gonna dive deep into the literal and thematic power of love later in the video, but for now, look at her history. Gunko and Brook have a history that goes way back before Brook even became a pirate. When she sees him, when that memory of a past bond resurfaces, it creates a feedback loop. It's basically the idea of hurting the people you love ends up hurting yourself, and for Gunko, that emotional trauma is physically cracking the stasis. To me, it suggests that the Covenant doesn't just fail when you hit it with enough Haki, it fails when the soul is reminded of a connection that predates the contract. IMU might be able to freeze a soul, but maybe they can't seem to freeze the bridge between two people. And if Gunko is starting to feel the weight of her actions, if she's starting to remember, then IMU's perfect administration is officially beginning to crumble. At this point, we've established that the Covenant is basically a cosmic pause button for the soul. But if that's true, it raises a question that is honestly a bit of a head scratcher. If the Five Elders have frozen wills, where is that massive crushing Haki actually coming from? If the Abyssal Covenant freezes the soul, then logically, the Five Elders should be as spiritually empty as a discarded soda can. When I say IMU stole the Five Elders Haki, I'm not talking about draining them like a battery. It's much more clinical and much more disturbing. By freezing their souls, IMU effectively destroyed their ability to generate Haki independently. Their Haki didn't just vanish, the internal engine that produces it simply stopped running. By freezing their souls, IMU effectively destroyed their ability to generate Haki independently, and this would create a vacancy, a spiritual void inside their bodies. Under this framework, IMU isn't just buffing the Elders, IMU is occupying the space where their original will used to be. The Haki we see them using, it's IMU's Haki, expressed through preserved high-end vessels that are no longer capable of resisting or redirecting it. Think of it like a corporate buyout where the original CEO is still technically running in the building, but they've been locked in a supply closet while the new owners run the company into the ground using the original brand name. This could explain why their presence feels so uniform and procedural. Each of them don't have an individual, unique quirk to them. They feel like a synchronized unit because they're all drawing from the same singular source of output. If the Covenant suppresses the soul, if it freezes the will at its source, then the Five Elders lose the ability to generate Haki for themselves. Now, if you still think this idea of stasis is a reach, then we need to talk about why the ice symbolism in One Piece is almost aggressively on the nose. Ice usually represents stagnation, a timeout. It's an indefinite cosmic pause button that says, please remain exactly as you are forever. Think about the frozen straw hat in Mary Joie. It's the most protected object in the world, and it's not hidden or destroyed, it's preserved. That is IMU's entire mission statement. The world government doesn't rule by shaping the future, it rules by preventing change. Even Aokiji, a guy whose entire power set is built on freezing things, embodies this. His brand of lazy justice is effectively the ultimate form of stagnation. It's the refusal to move, the refusal to act, and the literal freezing of the status status quo. Just take a look back at Little Garden. It's a literal island frozen in time, where the environment hasn't changed for God knows how long. It's no coincidence that this is the place where we were first introduced to the giants and the cultural Velbath. Think about the symmetry here. We learned about the giants on an island defined by its refusal to evolve, and now, over 1,000 chapters later, we're at the Elbath arc where we're finally learning about covenants. Oda is effectively telling us that Imu's system is a much larger, much more disturbing version of Little Garden. Imu is trying to turn the entire world into a prehistoric terrarium where nothing ever dies, but nothing ever grows either. The blueprint for this was even hidden in the most filler-feeling arc in the series, Long Ring, Long Land. The Davy Back fight isn't about power. The Davy Back fight is about rules and frameworks. You don't lose because Foxy is strong. You lose because you've accepted a system designed to stall you out. Foxy's Nora no Mi slows people down until they can't progress. Imu is doing the exact same thing, just with a much higher budget. They impose stagnation. Once the soul is slowed or frozen, resistance literally stops mattering because the system already owns order. Now let's circle back to the Death's Covenant, because we gotta talk about the chilling sensation and the smoke we see during the branding. I'm willing to bet that this is Oda giving us physical evidence of a soul being forced into stasis. In the previous video, I proposed that a soul in One Piece is basically a miniature sun. It burns because it's in a state of constant chaotic motion. But what fuels that fire? In the real world, stars stay hot because of nuclear fusion. But in One Piece, I'm betting the soul stays hot because of emotional fusion, the bonds, dreams, and passion that connects us to each other. We see the proof of this through Sanji. When he uses Diable Jambe, he explicitly says his flames burn hotter because of his passion. Sanji is the walking proof that in this universe, love and passion are literal thermal energy. But look at Vegapunk's Mother Flame. It's an attempt to create an undying sun, but it's fundamentally incomplete. It can't be self-sustained. It has to be kept inside a specific reactor tank, submerged in some undisclosed liquid just to keep the reaction from dying out. You can pretty much compare that to the idea of the Covenant that I've been yapping about throughout this entire video. Covenants are like reactor tanks for your soul. Without the love or bonds to allow your soul to self-sustain, you lose the ability to be yourself, you stop chasing dreams, you're essentially in a spiritual prison where your power is only kept alive because of the liquid the system Imu provides. So this brings us to the cosmic hierarchy. It's obvious that Luffy represents the sun, the self-sustaining source of light and motion and freedom. We know Blackbeard represents the darkness, the total consumption of that light. But Imu isn't darkness. Imu is the Eclipse. An eclipse doesn't destroy the sun, obviously, but it blocks it. Imu's covenants could act as a barrier that prevents the soul from receiving love or giving it back. It breaks the love feedback loop required for nuclear fusion, for quote-unquote nuclear fusion that is. By cutting you off from the heat of others, Imu acts as the eclipse to force your soul to go cold. But to understand what made Imu this way in the first place, we have to go back to the beginning. We have to look at the origin of Imu themselves in this video here. I still wanna give me a song where I beat you. Can't trust everything that you saw when I cheat. Just know if I dish you, I make sure you know that I hit you like I'm on your ID. I'm aiming the album to fall off. It's pretty ironic